Hello and welcome to Attacking Third. We are live on YouTube. We've got a United States Women's National Team recap for you all, and of course, an injury update on Mallory Swanson. There's a lot to get through. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe to us, like this video, and drop all of your thoughts in the chat. We want to hear from you. Let's go. Hey everyone, and welcome into Attacking Third, a CBS Sports soccer podcast. I'm Sandra Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports, joined today, as always, by my colleague and co-host Lisa Roman, broadcaster and analyst for CBS Sports. On today's segment, we're talking about the United States Women's National Team versus Ireland, a 2-0 win for the United States. Before we get into everything, a quick reminder to go ahead and leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. We're also on YouTube, so make sure you subscribe to us here at youtube.com/attacking third to get all sorts of exclusive United States Women's National Team content, previews, recaps, interviews, and more right here on A3. Lisa, good morning. We're back at it.
Morning.
How you
I
doing?
know. Good. It's good to see you this Monday morning and be with everyone on YouTube. International break, lots of games happening, a lot to take in, a little bit of a holiday weekend for most people. So it's good to spend some time with family, take in some soccer. But hey, back to the grind this morning, and we have a lot to talk about. We definitely have a lot to get into.
Yeah, it's one of those. I didn't anticipate this being one of those games where you and I got back in the mix, got back in front of the camera to go live and say, "Hey, let's get to going." But it just sort of felt, it has sort of felt like as each hour has passed since Saturday's match, that we wanted to make sure that we had as much information as possible,
Mhm.
essentially, before we decided to talk about Mallory Swanson and the injury that occurred during the first half of this match. And that's where we're going to start with this episode. How this came about. Mallory Swanson was stretchered off of the pitch in the opening half of this game against Ireland. Took a couple knocks, kind of got ping ponged around really early in this match. There was some physicality going on, probably in the opening 20, the opening half hour of this game. There was a previous collision in the game, just Swanson unable to stop her momentum combined with some contact, kind of falling. It looked like shoulder first into the knee of Courtney Bronson of Ireland, and there was a moment in stoppage of play there. After some evaluation with the medical staff, came back onto the pitch, and then the United States went ahead and kept trying to crack at it and get the opening goal in the match. And then we saw a very kind of brief collision. It just sort of looked like two players kind of coming together, one in a defensive kind of manner, looking to make a tackle, dispossess, and what looked like a plant with the left leg of Mel Swanson, and she just immediately went down and grabbed her knee. And I think within that moment, um, lots of oh no's kind of
Yeah.
hitting everyone. I think whether you're her teammates, whether you were present in Austin, Texas to watch this game, whether you were someone like us taking it in on the television or on a stream, your I think immediate reaction is just like, that is not good
hmm
for the player or the team.
Even watching, if you weren't able to watch the game live and then seeing the reaction on Twitter and social media and kind of seeing the fallout, my heart breaks and our thoughts and prayers go out to Mallory Swanson and this painful, devastating injury that she occurred. It's officially reported she has torn her patellar tendon. It's the tendon that basically connects your kneecap to your other bones, and the way that it ruptured in the pictures, and as soon as she goes down, it is pretty graphic and it's pretty
Yeah.
scary. It made my knee hurt watching her the video and then watching the pictures live, not showing any of them here on YouTube. But it was truly devastating. The way that her teammates around her on the pitch reacted as well was also immediate. I mean, you could tell that she was just in in devastating pain as soon as it happened. And her teammates joining around her. I mean, Rose Lavelle immediately sitting down next to her, grabbing her shoulders, trying to calm her in any sense. Which in that sense is impossible to do. And then the stretcher coming out onto the field, and this injury occurring in the very end of the first half. Like, it was around 40 minutes or so. And of course, by the time the stretcher comes out and the gator, almost, it's like a golf cart, kind of comes out and takes her out, she seems to have it calmed down a little bit, perhaps given a little bit of numbness and medicine to kind of stop so much of that excruciating pain that's happening. And then she does get carted off the field, giving up a heart to the fans in Q2 Stadium in Austin, and saying that, basically saying like, thanks. You can see her talking to people in the video as she's like being carted off the field, like saying thank you, waving to the fans. And I guess she said to Vlatko Andonovski, like, coach, I'm all right, coach, which honestly, that breaks my heart a little bit more, because this is a player that, I mean, Mallory Swanson has been through so much. She has been through so much in her soccer career, everything from being a 16-year-old on the World Cup team many years ago to then suffering a number of injuries and having to kind of get cycled out of the U.S. women's national team roster. And she's worked her way back in the last several years and become stronger than she ever was before. She had to change her mindset and her mentality to kind of get to the level that she was at. I mean, she had secured her starting spot in the front line for this U.S. women's national team. Devastating to see, and our thoughts and prayers are with Swanson for sure, and her recovery.
I mean, she was going to the World Cup. Like, let's
yes, that was without a doubt.
That's part of what's so devastating about this. I mean, there's no final roster that has been named, right? And credit to these players, and in fairness to them as competitors, whenever you talk to any of them, they preface this journey to the World Cup is like, they're competing, they have to make sure they earn their spot, et cetera, et cetera. They're locked in, right? But I think at this point, when you're 3-ish months out from a World Cup and you're looking at the pool of players who have been available for this team for the better part of the last 2 years to 18 months, you're looking at them and you could maybe even narrow down, say, like, there's probably somewhere from 15 to maybe even 18 players that you can point out and say, this is a player that's going to a World Cup. And Mallory Swanson was one of those players. I think when you look at this team and their build up to Australia and New Zealand, and maybe that's where I've been at, I think, as sort of post game, and then listening to any updates that we were given as media with Andonovski in the post game press conference. Obviously, the early update that took place Sunday. I think in between that limbo of time, I think folks try to wonder or assume or guesstimate, like, you know, what it could be. I think there's folks, the medical, I think, field were reacting to this as well. That was part of what was so, I think, telling to me in as far as the caliber of player that this has got all this attention. I think at one point when I just happened to look on a timeline, I think there were sports medical professionals trying to like, you know, collaborate and ascertain, like, oh, like, what could we have possibly seen here? Like, that is the level of impact that this player has at this moment. The most informed player for the national team since this year started. So
and more will come out about kind of what happened, right? Was there anything internally that went wrong or with the knee? Because this injury, it happens, the tearing and the rupturing essentially of the patellar tendon, but it's not that common. We don't see it all the time in soccer. And the fact that it was essentially non-contact, it was her plant foot. And that's what happened when she planted and then went into the tackle with her right foot. It's her left knee that happened. That was her plant leg. And that's kind of when it ruptured. And a lot of people speculating, a lot of people guessing, and even people in our chat joining us live on YouTube, like, how long is this? How long is it going to take? We don't know. And I mean, like you can WebMD it if you want yourself, like a patellar tendon, depending on how much it's torn, if it's torn completely, if it's ruptured completely, the damage that's done, it can take up to 6 months. It can take up to 12 months to repair. It can take up to 3 months to get back to form and where things go. We don't know. Sandra and I are not medical professionals. We don't know. And we haven't talked to Swanson about it. So, but those are, it's devastating. She is out for the World Cup and she was going initially.
Yeah. I just think in terms of like what that means for the team moving forward, I think it's jarring. I mean, it presents a new set of questions for this team that hasn't existed for months. I mean, when we look at things positionally for this national team, if we go line by line, I think you can take a look and make an argument that there's certain question marks within each line. I mean, we've seen rotation within the back line for probably the better part of the last 18 months, with the inclusion and rise in form from somebody like a Naomi Girma, and the rotation there. We have seen new players rotated into the midfield as recent as January for this team. And you know what didn't maybe have those question marks? It was your attacking line.
Yeah.
And Smith and Swanson and Morgan have been the trio for this team for the better part since, let's just go back to July for CONCACAF qualifiers. Let's just go there. And maybe for, folks, they're like, oh, well, 8 months together isn't a long time. But I think when you're making that comparison to some of what we've seen across some of the other lines, that has been the most consistent line and factor for this team. And it's one of these moments where I think when you look at it on the competitive side of things and in that angle, there's the competition around you is not going to feel bad for you for very long. You look at even like a national team program like England, they're going to a World Cup without a Beth Mead. Somebody for Spain like Alexia Putellas is just getting back into form with Barcelona. Like, there's not going to be a lot, too much sympathy for this national team, as the World Cup gets closer. And I think maybe while you were trying to tighten up or ensure other things, and maybe the other two lines on the pitch, you at least knew that going into this World Cup that's your attacking front line was something that you maybe didn't have to worry about. But now that's no longer necessarily the case. We're likely to see maybe some answers in the second game, in terms of who's going to get the start and what they may and what the coaching staff might roll out.
Because Trinity Rodman rotated in as soon as Swanson went out, so she finished out the end of the first half, Rodman, and then finished out the second half and the entirety of the game. So that was who initially was rotated in for Swanson during this injury.
Yeah, and so I think maybe folks are looking for like those silver linings, and maybe that could be one of those silver linings. I mean, within this update for Mal Swanson, U.S. Soccer did a couple things. They said, here's the update. This is what it is. She suffered a torn patella tendon in her left knee at the end of the first half. She returned to Chicago for further evaluation. So maybe a silver lining there. Chicago's a city with great orthopedics and able to maybe get her, a further diagnosis. What's the grade of the tear? What does it look like? What are the next steps? Right. And then the other part of that is the fact that this national team program is a literal machine. Trinity Rodman, someone able to sub in at that moment. Lynn Williams is on this roster. And U.S. Soccer in this same announcement also said they've called in 18-year-old forward Alyssa Thompson to sort of close out this 2-game series against Ireland. So young player, up and coming, number 1 draft for Angel City, just earned her first caps with this team in October of 2022. Big debut. I mean, she was with the team during the pair of friendlies in Europe while they went to go face England and Spain. And she was also called in to close out the 2022 calendar year as the team prepared to face Germany, though she did not get minutes against the Germans. So I think
And she wasn't, Alyssa Thompson wasn't called in during She Believes either.
no. I mean, at that point, she had already been drafted by Angel City.
Yeah.
She's like taking those first steps as a pro. But what we've seen out of the opening 2 weeks, maybe that's what we talk about NWSL play kind of having an impact for players. Scored in her regular season debut in week 1, earned a penalty kick against Orlando in week 2. So I'm curious to see if she gets some time.
Yeah.
Ireland, honestly.
I think she will, honestly, because to bring in a player like this, like clearly she's on the bubble of the World Cup roster. And now, yes, sadly losing Swanson, it opens up another spot for players. And when you look at who else could have been called into this roster halfway through this April window, Midge Purce is an option out of Gotham. She was on the She Believes Cup roster, but instead Black Witanowski chooses to go with Alyssa Thompson. So I think you get her minutes to see, hey, is she ready to compete at this level? I mean, yeah, there's plenty of different options there that Blacko can go with. And yes, like there is, as you said, this program is a bit of a machine in which the way that they can churn out top level players, but do they have the experience? Do they have what it takes to score in these high pressure moments? And I think that Mallory Swanson is one that has kind of been through the conveyor belt of this machine a few different times because she started so young and she hit her peak. And then a lot of people think she fell off and she worked her way individually. Swanson back into this roster and back into top form. She had 7 goals in this calendar year, Sandra. This is a big loss for the United States. 8. I'm so sorry.
I'm like, I think 8. Look,
8.
Everyone can go ahead and stat check us in the chat if they want 7 or 8. But the leading goal scorer.
Leading goal scorer, right? She scored in all these games in She Believes Cup. She was just going off and going crazy in them. It's a big loss. It is a big hole to fill. And there are plenty of players that can step up and fill. Thompson being the one initially called into this camp, Rodman getting the minutes on the field in place of Swanson. But it's going to be a conversation. It's going to be a topic for Black Witanowski, an issue that he never wanted to have to deal with, that no fan ever wanted to see. But next man up. Let's see how it goes. It's a very big hole to fill that Swanson leaves.
Yeah, for club and country. I know we haven't chatted too much about how that's going to affect her club team, like someone like Chicago Red Stars, but I think it's effective to say that that's a major loss for them as well. Perhaps bigger even of a loss than for the national team. But we'll have some. We will definitely have some areas on the pitch to look at, some new ones to sort of keep an analytical eye on for the team going up in this second game against Ireland. And we'll preview that a little bit as well in this episode. But we definitely want to talk about game 1 against the girls in green. So stick with us after a quick break.
Europe's most exciting title race continues with world-class clubs, legendary rivals, and unbelievable goals.
Brilliant! What a goal!
The Serie A lives here on CBS Sports Network and streaming live on Paramount+.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Attacking Third. We are here recapping USA versus Ireland in a pair of friendlies that they had. If you're joining us live on YouTube, we welcome back Sandra. We missed you, buddy, just for a minute, but she's back. We're going to talk about Ireland versus USA, that first game, kind of how it all broke down, what we saw, the starting lineup, how everything worked with this squad and this team. Sandra, you want to hit us with our starting lineups for this first match?
I was just blown away by the break, apparently, and I said, hold on 1 second. I need some extra time to gather and collect myself, but I'm back. Thanks, Lisa. We're going to chat some more about this opening match with the United States against Ireland. Let's take a look at who was starting at the time and just sort of give our reactions to that. Alyssa Nair getting the honors for game 1 Crystal Dunn, Becky Sauerbrunn, Naomi Girma, and Emily Fox to round out the back line. Lindsay Horan, Andy Sullivan, and Rose Lavelle for the midfield, and Mallory Swanson, Alex Morgan, and Sophia Smith to complete the starting 11. Honestly, when I saw this drop, Lisa, I was like, chef's kiss. I love it. I like it. I think every game that goes by, we start to see perhaps the ideal starting 11 for this team. And I was very excited to see Emily Fox slot in to the outside back position. And, Lavelle, Horan, and Sullivan getting that start with each other again. We talked a little bit about that injury with Swanson and how maybe devastating or near catastrophic that could be for the front line that has been together for many, many months. And they were the one line that you sort of knew was collected, gathered, and complete for the World Cup. And then maybe an argument could be made maybe for this middle third. Despite some of the recent rotations within it, it has mostly been Lavelle, Horan, and Sullivan in some capacity. But when I saw this 11 drop, I liked it.
Yeah, I agree. I did too. I mean, as you said, every day we get closer, one step closer to the World Cup, and we get to see what Flacco wants as his starting 11. This was it in my eyes. This was 100%. If the World Cup started on Saturday, April 8th, this is who would have started the game in the World Cup, the group stages. Nair solidifying herself in that back line. Dunn, who has worked her way back from maternity leave with club, now with country, and in Dunn's return, we don't see the absence of Fox. And I think that shows just how important Emily Fox is to this roster, to this team, and to how Vlach-Wieniawski wants to play. Because Emily Fox, who had traditionally played on the left side in place of Dunn over the last year and a half, has now switched to the right side. Which I think also says a little bit about Emily Sonnet, Sofia Huerta, in whatever you want to think about it. But the fact that those players have been on the right, and now they're staying on the bench to start this game, and Fox is getting rotated to the other side, just speaks to what Fox can do and how this team really does want to play, because she is so versatile. She can play on the left back and the right back. She can push higher. She can push centrally, which we saw a lot of during this game. I can't wait to talk about that. But then Sauerbrunn and Girma in the center back. I mean, that's my duo. I like that duo. I like where it's going. Yes, you've still got Tierna Davidson working back into it, but I don't think Alana Cook has proved herself to be the starting center back for this team. And the caliber is just not there in competition against Girma. Girma wins out over Cook every time in my mind, and same as Sauerbrunn. So this is the center back starting duo for me, Sauerbrunn and Girma. Yeah, and then, I mean, the central midfield, that's what he wants to go with. We'll see if anything changes there. And then the front line, of course, Swanson being the one change that he will have to choose and decide about moving forward. But there was a lot to kind of talk about and break down in this first match for the United States against Ireland. And I want to hear your thoughts. I want to give mine, because there was a lot of good stuff, a lot of juicy moments in this first 90 minutes.
Well, let's also, I mean, we knew that there were only going to be 23 players available for these matches, even though 26 players were named. No Davidson, no O'Hara, no Kruger, not even dressed or available for this one. Maybe they'll get a shot in this second match. But I'm with you. I think when we previewed this game a little bit, we said that we wanted to see Girma with the start. I mentioned that at some point, I think we need to see a start alongside Davidson just to see what that looks like. But Girma and Sauerbrunn was enough. I think even just narrowing that lens really on Girma in this match was massive. I thought she was like the first half MVP for me, honestly. I think if this series of games has been billed as the final set of international matches for this team before that final World Cup roster is named, then this is the game for me that just solidifies that. I think there's already been a very strong case for Girma in her short time with this team, but you have enough here, I think, to look at and say, this is a player that I need to take to the World Cup. Because in this opening match, even just this opening half hour, let's talk about that for this game. Ireland
Woo.
really presenting themselves to the United States and
Okay,
saying, hey, we're going to the World Cup too.
I know. I love that. But I want to talk about this because Ireland came out ready to play. They were fired up. They had a game plan against the United States that worked. Shinead Farrley, Sandra, we got to talk about her. We talked about this Irish roster, and this was added on after we did our last episode. But Farrley joined the national team. She was making her return to the NWSL. She then gets called up to the Irish international team for the very first time. And not only does she get her first cap, she gets her first start with this Irish side in the midfield, and Farrley proving to be a piece to deal with for the United States. I mean, the Irish came out in this game and they had a game plan against the Americans. They wanted to attack them early. They wanted to put a lot of pressure on them and make it difficult for the U.S. to build out of the back. It was almost like, okay, we're going to give the back four time with the ball, but they are never going to find Swanson, Morgan, and Smith. We're going to make it incredibly difficult. It wasn't like sit back, park the bus. It was, we're going to sit back, but like in the attacking end of our field. So like we're going to press, we're not going to give them any space in behind, and we're not going to allow the back line to get these services off. It was incredibly entertaining. The United States had to figure out how they were going to break down the Irish press because it was a good press. It was very organized, and the Americans had trouble building the ball up, getting it into the midfielders, getting it into Morgan, Swanson, Smith, finding their feet in the first 30 minutes of this game was incredibly difficult. It was a big middle of the field battle for the first 30 minutes because the Americans would lose it and then the Irish would try to build up. I think their midfield looked really good. It honestly benefited Ireland once the game got stretched a little bit more because they could counterattack, and there were those moments of transition that Ireland could try to get in behind and look to get shots on goal. It was great. I really liked it. I mean, I'm Irish, so it was like also fun to watch Ireland like go at the Americans. But it was because I wanted the US to be tested and I wanted them to be forced to kind of play this chess match that was quick and that was incredibly physical and really, really physical to start this game. You could tell that Ireland was ready to play.
I think it was that that match day one, like -1 press conference where we saw and heard that, you know, Shinead Farrley was added to the roster for Ireland. And not only was she added, she was probably going to get a start with Ireland against the United States. And it's just an absolutely incomprehensible story arc that we are witnessing for Shinead Farrley, and I'm just happy that we're all here for it. Honestly, just happy to be here to sort of watch this and see it unfold. And looking at Ireland and their shape early in this match. Yes, credit to them executing their game plan well. But I think on the United States side of things, I think this was for the team. I think it's another one of these games that you have a ton of film on to go back and look at and say, okay, here's another match where we are presented with the opposition and their game plan, and it's going to take us this kind of interesting like 20 to 35 minutes to really try and unlock exactly what it is they are presenting to us. And I think that's one of the takeaways that I left with in this first half. Obviously, the Swanson injury completely blows everything out of the water. Like your attention goes there, your focus goes there. You're like, oh my goodness, like what is that going to mean in the long run? But prior to that, let's just say even for 38 minutes of that, you're like, okay, so they're getting tested on set pieces. Ireland's like, we're going to get in there. We're going to make sure that we test you, causing a little bit of chaos in the box, getting a little bit of physical. I mean, Katie McCabe, like, don't mess with the gunner, man. Like, going to come for you on any good day. I know there were some question marks around how available already she was going to go, having picked up an injury, but
she was ready.
She looked great against the United States. but yeah, just some difficulties, I think, early on in trying to unlock some things and trying to get into dangerous spaces and look lethal and look kind of, like threatening in front of goal. I mean, this opening goal comes off of a defender. It comes because Emily Fox was getting more central and getting more involved in the play and just lets one rip from just on top of the box and beats Rosen in the 37th minute for the opening goal in this one.
Yeah, it was almost a bit surprising. I think it caught Ireland off guard, the shot that did come from Fox. But United States was playing this shape and this structure that the first 15 minutes, Ireland made it very difficult for the U.S. to build out of the back. They problem solved. And then we saw Girma playing. I mean, you talked about kind of woman of the match in my eyes. I know it was awarded to Fox, but Girma played tremendously. She is the one that really started to kind of play these long balls in over the top and in behind, looking for Morgan, Swanson, Smith on the back side and those back shoulders. So once the United States realized that, it forced Ireland to drop, which then the United States could play the ball back and around the back in their defensive side because they had a little bit more space to play with because Ireland had dropped off on the ball. And in this shape, we see Crystal Dunn, the left back for the U.S., pushing up really high and wide on the flank, occupying that space. That's normal. That's where Dunn likes to hang out. That's where we've traditionally seen it. Now, Emily Fox playing on the right outside back position, she is not staying high and wide. Instead, she is shifting completely centrally when the U.S. has the ball. And she's almost playing as like a double six pivot with Andy Sullivan. And Herrera and Lavelle are much higher, having that freedom. But to see Fox just have so much freedom on the pitch as to kind of where she can float and rotate, and centrally being another player to help swing the ball around and help be an outlet when it is so congested for Ireland and the U.S. attackers trying to get the ball. Fox becomes that outlet. And I think she talked about it post-game in an interview, probably with Melissa Ortiz, saying, I saw the space and I saw the opportunity. She saw it there a couple of times. Yeah. And it took her the third time, maybe, when she received the ball outside the 18 to say, okay, I'm going to shoot this. She dribbles. She receives the ball from her left, dribbles to her right, which opens up a little bit of a gap, and she strikes it in the corner. I mean, it's really well struck. It caught Irish off guard, and they weren't ready for it, and it finds the back of the net. Her first international goal, tremendous from this player, and really occupying the space that she needed to occupy centrally, which is different than what we've seen her do when she was on the left side.
Yeah, and I think, we're talking about this goal and how it happens. It takes almost 38 minutes, for this to happen, and it happens because we have an attacking outside back paying attention to the space in front of her. And I think even with the midfield too, I think we know how this game turns 2-0, and we'll talk about how and why. But with the Rose Lavelle in the midfielders that are kind of like that, kind of, let's just refer to them as like perhaps the ideal trio at this moment for the United States. But even looking at Rose Lavelle, I thought she had another great game.
Yeah,
but so tasked with trying to find and create and be that playmaker. But even with this goal, like, it's not just like, hey, the defender hopped on a ball and just said, let me get a foot through this ball and make it happen. No, it was, Lavelle cutting back near end line, recycling the ball out to Girma to Sullivan. I think you got to maybe try to find, those small moments. And then I think silver linings within the play here. I think, yeah, of course, as you're building up to a World Cup, I think ideally you want your forwards making sure that they're feeling dangerous and lethal. But not every game is going to present itself as that. And I think all things considered with how that first half ends, it leaves a lot of questions as to how the second half is going to look. Does this turn into a game where the team has to sort of try to compartmentalize things and get through it? I mean, we heard from a lot of these players coming out of the postgame how really kind of emotionally jarring that was for this team to lose Mel Swanson in the manner in which it happened, that they sort of had to kind of come together and try to just complete the game as best that they could. And for a very long time, it was a kind of a narrow scoreline that they were working with. I do like how they came out in the second half. And that's another, I think, theme that we take away from a game like this. It's like, here's an opening 20 to 30 minutes where the team has some difficulty trying to unlock the opposition's shape. And then maybe they get an opening goal late in the half. Maybe they don't, but they go in a halftime. Whatever is said in the locker room. And then the team comes out and they look fierce. And I think that's sort of what we saw again in a game like this. And I think we got to get into these substitutions because we also got to see some other faces get involved into the mix. We saw in our substitution, we saw Shinead Farrley head off for Ireland. For the United States, we got to see Emily Sonnet and Ashley Hatch back into the mix. And then we also got to see the return of Julie Ertz in the second half of this match. And we got to talk about it. Look, Julie Ertz hasn't played in 2 years, and there were moments of the 20 minutes where she was on the pitch where it looked like she hasn't played in 2 years. And yet, exiting this game with an early header attempt on a set piece, a yellow card, and is an asset to winning the penalty kick for the go-ahead goal in this game as well. It was quite the 20 minutes.
And we predicted that in our preview of this USA versus Ireland first friendly. We talked about how we would see Julie Ertz, but 60, 75 minutes. And that's exactly what we saw around just before the 70th minute mark is when she subs on for Andy Sullivan with a few other substitutes, as you mentioned, but definitely an opportunity for Vlatko Malinovsky to see her get significant minutes, right? 20 minutes in a game is better than 10. It's better than 5. It actually allows her a chance to kind of rotate in. And as soon as she steps on the pitch, where the throw-in was for the U.S. and kind of how it works, she's the first one to touch the ball. So she checks on, and initially she's got a touch. And her first couple of passes, right, were long balls that were continuously getting intercepted. You could tell the game plan was, hey, Ertz, like, look to see if you can get it in behind to your front runners up top. Can you find Lindsay Horan? Can you get the ball to them and play quickly into them? Because that's what she was doing. And instead of just playing the simple pass back to Germa or Sauerbrunn or connecting with Lavelle in that front line. So that was clearly the game plan, which maybe threw her off a little bit, because as a player, when you step onto the pitch after 2 years of not playing, 7 months after giving birth, you need to build up your confidence a little. You have to connect passes, even if they're simple passes. You have to win a tackle, and you kind of get your mojo going. It didn't happen for Ertz initially when she stepped onto the pitch, right? I mean, I mean this in the best way. She looked rusty because she hadn't played in 2 years.
Yeah,
and it's perfectly fine and perfectly normal. She still looked better than a lot of other players that we see playing consistently. So to me, it was not at all surprising. I think it would have been way more surprising if Ertz came onto the field and looked the same way she did in the bronze medal match for the Olympics in Tokyo. That would have been scary. It's like, okay, she is actually a machine. But no, she's human. She gave birth. She had a baby 7 months ago. It's going to take her some time to get back into things. But there were still so many positives we saw from Ertz, because although her initial 4 or 5 passes into the game were intercepted, that's how the same type of sequence where she receives the ball deep and then she plays a long ball and finding a forward or a midfielder connects. That's how the penalty kick is drawn for the United States to get their second goal in this game. It's Ertz who plays the ball into Horan. It's such a great ball played in. Horan can control it with her chest just inside the box, and she gets tugged down by Diane Caldwell. And that's the ball from Ertz. It's Sandra giving a hug in this one, because that's exactly how it went. I mean, I feel bad for Caldwell, I'm not going to lie, but
I respect the center back energy, and
Same.
where you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, there was no way I was tugging the collar and had my fingers all the way inside of the collar. It was a pretty fun moment. Obviously the friendly didn't have VAR or anything like that, but for those of us watching on a broadcast who saw replays and things like that, we're like, oh yeah, that's absolutely.
That's a horse collar if I ever saw one.
Let me ask you this. When the foul happened and it's like the horse collar foul in the box, PK given, did did you think Herrera was going to step up and take this PK? Because we didn't see her line up over the ball initially. I think it was Lavelle at first.
Yes. I did think it was going to be Herrera because that's kind of who takes these for us, right? Maybe Smith. I wouldn't have been surprised if Sophia Smith lined up over it. But Alex Morgan had been rotated out at this point, right? So that was my initial thought, right? Okay, so Morgan, no, she's not in. Hatch had just subbed in for her. So yes, it made sense for me to see Herrera get this one, but it got tipped. It wasn't like a surefire goal. It got saved a little bit by the goalie and then still went in.
She got her hand on it, yeah, but there was like enough power behind it where it's like it didn't matter that you got some fingertips on it because it was still in the back end of the net. But it's definitely something to maybe pay attention to. Who knows if in game 2 there will be a similar scenario where a PK is given and someone has to step up and take it. I'm curious if maybe if there's what your typical starters are in the game, like who actually takes that penalty. But I think important to note that at that point Morgan had been subbed out, so who is going to be over that. But I was curious. I did want to get your perspective and your thoughts on that, because it did hit the keeper. The keeper guessed correctly.
I know. And it was, she got a hand on it for sure, but just enough power. With Ertz coming in, right, getting the yellow card, I think a dominant yellow card from Ertz, fine. I like it. I like that kind of yellow card. She goes in for the slide tackle, doesn't get the ball at all. The other player was fined, right? Not too malicious on that end, but it was almost like Ertz kind of getting her footing back into this game. I think as the 20 minutes went on of Ertz's play that we saw, she grew into it a little bit more. It was almost like the nerves calmed down, right? Imagine like the heartbeat and the nerves of that type of player. But even post game and the players over the last several days coming out and saying like, she didn't miss a beat. She did not miss a beat coming in and playing. And that's what you want to hear from the teammates of Ertz stepping in and taking this one. What about you from Ertz? Was there anything else you wanted to see from her, or was it just like a little jittery, a little rusty from her when you evaluated it?
I just wanted to see her get a run out and just sort of, I wanted to see this player look like she was just riding a bike again. Like I just wanted to see the muscle memory come into play for this player. And I think that's what I was looking for, because I knew we weren't going to see like this breakout beast mode kind of player just because of how she has had to navigate her last 2 years. I mean, just 7 months out from, giving birth to her son, and how challenging maybe that could be for mothers making their way back into form. So I wasn't looking for like, if she's not running a 40-yard dash in like 5 seconds, like it's a wrap. Like that's not the energy I had in this at all. I really wanted to see the muscle memory from Julie Ertz. And I was looking for that because I really believe that is why she's back with this team. Unfortunately, this team is rolled out with a very specific set of tactics. Andonovski has been committed to this for quite some time. We know, and I think the oppositions know at this point, when you're going up against the United States, you're going to see them in some variation of a 4-3-3, maybe at times a 4-2-3-1, but that has been like very rare in which we've seen that. And I think that delivered for me, because what we saw when Ertz came in for these 20 minutes, we saw a player where it clicked immediately, came in, slotted into that defensive 6 position, and knew when and where and how she was supposed to affect the game.
Right. And I think the fact that Lavelle wasn't rotated out initially and Herrera never subbed out, I think that also helped a little bit, giving that familiarity to have 2 other players in there that in Herrera and Lavelle that have solidified their position there to kind of keep the boat steady for Ertz, frankly. And having Sauerbrunn and Germa in behind her, like it was like, let's not create too many ruffles and waves initially. Then we do see Ashley Sanchez get rotated in for Lavelle around the 80-minute mark. Nothing too crazy coming from that. I think I know we're kind of closing out on this game and recapping it, I want to give a shout out to Sophia Smith, because in the first 30 minutes of this game, I mean, right, of course, she's on fire. She's crushing it for club, but we haven't seen her for country yet this year. And it had really been the Mal Swanson show. And we knew that Smith was going to come in and do good things. But in the first 30 minutes, when the United States had trouble building up the ball and finding their forwards' feet, Smith is one that looked for the ball, dropping back into those deep midfield spaces just to get touches on it, just to collect it at her feet. I was really impressed with Smith and her off-ball movement to try to get the ball and try to win it back, knowing that Alex Morgan was going to continue to stay high and look to get in on the backside. But Smith was a very big bright spot in this game for me. Smith, Girma, Fox, standouts, and Lavelle. I mean, Lavelle is always a standout. She's always a playmaker. She's always the QB for this team, so she's always great.
No, I'm in agreement with you 100%. You're going to find a variation or a difference for me. All standout players. I think even if you're looking from half one to half two, the ones who really, really kind of had an impact in a game like this. And maybe we'll get to see some continuity. Who knows if we'll see a similar starting 11 in game two. Stick with us. We're going to give you a preview of match 2 against Ireland.
You need to know what you're getting into. This is not cops and robbers. The enemy is everywhere, but he can't be seen.
Why me? None of this makes sense.
It's a mind game, John.
What have you gotten me into?
I can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not.
All right, match number 2 against Ireland. USA heading to St. Louis for this one. Going to play at City Park Stadium to close out this 2-game series against Ireland, the last set of international friendlies for this national team before Andonovski and the coaching staff finalizes a World Cup roster. So what are we going to see in game 2? Or what would we like to see in game 2? Let's see, Saturday to Tuesday, a little bit of a quick turnaround, but I think we're probably going to see some similar faces. I think if this is all about making sure that your mostly ideal 11 continues to get time together, I think we're going to still see a similar starting 11, obviously sans Swanson at this point, but, Roosevelt going 80 minutes in game 1, I won't be surprised if she gets a start in game 2. Same for Herrera, etc. I'm curious.
Yeah, I don't think Ertz will start.
No, I think that's still the concept there is still to just maybe get minutes off the bench. Currently unattached for club, but maybe that's something else that's going to come out of this set of friendlies. Eventually, a club team will be announced for Ertz, but I just think at this point we might see some similar faces that we saw in game 1.
Yeah, I agree. Looking like backline, I think we're going to see Nair again. I don't think there'll be rotation there. I think that we could see Cook get time alongside Girma in the back line. And then I really want to see Davidson. I know she didn't dress for the first game, but I would like to see Cook get the start and then Davidson rotate in to be alongside Girma. But because I think Sauerbrun's a lock and she has been a lock, what she can do. So, okay, let's see Dunn, Cook, Girma, Fox along the back line, and then Davidson rotated in for Cook. So then we get to see Davidson and Girma.
It's St. Louis, though. I mean, they're honoring the team captain with.
I know she's going to start. She's going to play. She's going to get a goal, as she should. I know, but
she's going to get a goal.
I know this is great. I love it. But I mean, I think we'll still see Haran, Lavelle, Sullivan in that center midfield. And between Morgan and Smith up top, of course, there's no Swanson. She's not even with the team anymore. Alyssa Thompson being called in to this camp for her U.S. international cap this year, her first one. I don't think we'll get a start from Thompson. I think Rodman will get the start in that front line. She's who rotated in for Swanson coming in at the end of the first half in the first match. But I think it'll be Rodman, Morgan, Smith in that front line.
Hey, I don't hate it. I like it. I thought Rodman was a great substitute in for Swanson at the moment. So no Lynn Williams for you for the start. Maybe we see her off the bench.
I think we see her off the bench. I do.
Maybe do we see the elbow still taped up?
Yeah,
What do you think?
probably elbow still, gingerbread man style running out there for Williams. I don't think she gets the start. I mean, I think that we're going to see what he wants as his starting lineup out there. Again, maybe different rotation coming into this one. Like we'll get some rotation at halftime, right? We didn't. We only got Rodman coming in at halftime, so maybe that's when we'll see Williams get minutes. Maybe Davidson alongside Sauerbrunn. That's when we'll see the rotation. Ertz, I'd like to get her a little bit more of a run too, right? She came in around the 70th minute.
30 minutes versus 20 minutes.
Yeah, honestly, kind of see how she does and how she's feeling in this one. But I think this second game will be a good test for the United States because Ireland got their number in the first game a little bit. They had a really good game plan. They also got a goal, right? Remember, we didn't even talk about this in the recap. The Irish scored. They found the back of the net and it was called off due to offside, but they still got a goal. It was quick transition. That's the moments that Ireland, they had a lot of success on set pieces. There was a corner kick opportunity in the first game that Morgan saved off the line. They had free kicks, corners. Those set piece opportunities proved to be dangerous for the United States. And then as the second half went on in the first match, the Irish found themselves getting man up or equal opportunity in the transition game, not necessarily getting in behind the United States backline, but forcing them to turn and run, forcing them to open up that space. And that's where Ireland got the goal in the second half that was ultimately called off. So I'm going to be very interested to see how Ireland sets out with their game plan because their game plan worked in the first game, I think. I mean, the fact that they got the Americans' only goal came from a penalty kick and then the second goal or the first goal, but coming from a defender in the run of play, like they equalized or neutralized, Morgan, Smith, Swanson, Rodman, right? Like if that was your game plan as an Irish team, like, hey, we can't let Rodman, Smith, whoever the forwards are for the U.S. get the ball, turn and run. They didn't. And they didn't do that. It was a good game plan. So now for the U.S., how do they get the ball to Smith's feet and Morgan and Rodman and Williams, who's ever in that front line, and make them more dangerous and force shots on goal, force opportunities and open up the spaces, really problem solve against the Irish defense.
Okay, so Rodman getting the start for you in this attacking line for game two. I'm with you. I like it. There were 3 players who didn't dress in that first game. Who are 3 players that are not dressing in this second match for you?
This is a good one. Caught me off guard on this one. I'm looking. Casey Kruger. I don't think she didn't dress. I don't think she gets to dress again. I think it was more like, let's see, bring her into training, see how she's doing. They've got a good back line at this point. Unfortunately, I would love to see Kruger, but I don't think we will. Kelly O'Hara did not dress before either. I don't think it'll be any of the forwards. I think we'll see all of the forwards dress. I really do.
You're not in the camp where it's like, oh no, especially after game one, we've got to wrap everybody in bubble wrap. You're not in that camp.
No, you can't be. You can't be in that camp. 3 months out from the World Cup, you can't be in that camp.
Soccer giveth and it taketh away. That's the game.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
I hate it. I hate that part of it, but it's like a thing that exists.
I know.
It's existed since the beginning of time, unfortunately. But
so who do you think won't dress?
Oh, I'm with you. I think Kruger might be one of those players where you don't dress, because I also think, like, even though they haven't necessarily seen her in national team camps, this is a player that Andonovski kind of rates already and understands what he's getting out of her based on her NWSL play. I really think that maybe Kelly O'Hara is another player that doesn't dress. Again, similarly to Kruger, this is a veteran player, defender that has played in 2 World Cups, Olympics. You know what you're getting from this player, and she also knows what she's providing in this system for you. And if the idea is like everyone has to be available if you're in this camp, because we need to get together and make sure that you have as much time as possible in the build up to a World Cup, then maybe you dress them. But I don't know if someone like Kelly O'Hara is going a full 90 minutes
No,
in a
I don't
game
think she
like
is.
this.
Not when you know you have a Fox that can step in.
Yeah.
Honestly. So what about Alyssa Thompson?
I was
Do
going
you
to
think
say we
she
also
dresses?
did in our preview for the first game. We also did like who do we want to see minutes
I
versus
know.
who do we think needs minutes. So like yes, I think Alyssa Thompson is someone that I would really want to see get minutes in this, but I don't think we're going to see it.
I think we could see her be one of the players that doesn't dress. She gets called in,
Yeah.
she gets to train, but she's not going to dress.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Who
Taylor
needs
Korniak?
who needs minutes for you out of this second game? Who needs those minutes in order to leave that final imprint?
I think Ertz needs more minutes. I think Rodman. I think she's going to get the start, but I think Rodman needs more minutes.
I think Sanchez needs more minutes.
I think Sanchez needs more minutes. I want Davidson to get minutes.
I want Davidson to get minutes too.
Davidson. I want and need her to get more minutes.
Yeah. All right. The wants versus needs. It's something that we always have to balance as adults. Going through, like, do you really need those Hawaiian rolls, or do you just want them? Sorry, I'm still stuck on the Easter brunch.
I love it. I love it. If you want these players to get more minutes, go play FIFA because then you can make them do whatever you want.
You could put whatever ideal starting 11 that you want to have for this team. Who knows? Maybe we'll even get to see Shinead Farrley for Ireland.
I think she gets another start.
I would like to see it.
I think she gets another start.
I would like to see it, and hopefully we do. But that's a wrap for us today on Attacking Third. Thank you all so much for joining us on our live this morning. Download, follow, listen to us anywhere you get your podcast. You can watch us too. Subscribe to us on YouTube to get alerts for whenever we go live. YouTube.com/Attacking Third. And we'll be back with a United States Women's National Team recap. So make sure you look out for that. For Sandra and Lisa Roman, this was Attacking Third.